So here we're going to discuss evaluation in academic writing. Evaluation, both of the sources you use and your own research, is very important, both in expressing your own identity within your papers and in convincing other people of the validity of your claims, as well as in the importance of your research. So we're going to look at these are informal sentences. So they're not exactly the way in which you could write in an academic paper, which may be more formal. And so what you're going to be doing when you evaluate is that you're going to take a value in the paper and then show the extent to which your claim or other claims match that value. And you have to choose the appropriate word for matching the value. Now, in some cases, you'll see that this is a very appropriate way of doing things. But in other cases, how appropriate the word choice is will depend on the formal level of your paper. So here, we can look at, if we look at the boldface, here we can look at research described by Sonny Baines can lead to a better understanding of vocalization ability, okay? So here, the value
that we're looking at is understanding, or to understand something is one of the goals of research. And since this research gives you a better understanding, it must be good research. And similarly, in the second example, a better insight into the functioning, research should give you an insight, that's a value connected with academic research. And again, since this paper gives you a better insight, it must be a good evaluation. Now, in the second example, we read with interest the report. Interest, that is, because the report is interesting, again, that's a positive value. But words like interest are often vague. So it can be very important that even if you express a value, positively or negatively, that you give the reason why the value is true. Now, this is one way of doing it. We hypothesize that if KS, which is Kaposi sarcoma, is caused by a herpesvirus, antiviral agents with activity against herpesviruses might also decrease this incidence of KS. So, why did they find this report interesting? Because it supports their own research. And again, remember, your research needs to agree with other people's research to make your research important. So in this case, their research seems to agree with this research that they're evaluating, and therefore, of course, it's good research. If it didn't agree with it, then maybe they would have to show why it didn't agree or what's the problem with the research. But since their research coincides with the previous research, then you can assume that this was interesting research and that was very positive evaluation. In the third example, we can see some other ways of doing an evaluation of a research. So the first sentence, this layer of water is the link between the atmosphere and the deep ocean and directly affects the air fluxes of momentum, heat, and gases. And so directly affects is a positive evaluation, again, because the findings are important. It gives you a clear finding as to the importance of the research. So even without using an evaluative word, they show you that this is important research. Then in the next sentence, it is also of great importance. Now here they go back and they give you an evaluative word, great importance. But again, why is it of great importance? And then the third sentence. And the third sentence raises some interesting questions. So let's first look at why this is important. And this is an interesting example. It's important because the previous research is lacking. And one of the ways, of course, we've been discussing about situating your own research with previous research is to show that there's a problem with the previous research, and therefore you're going to do some new interesting research. So, in this expression, has not yet been determined, determining the role of Langmuir's circulation is obviously an important factor to do. So determining is the value. Research should determine something, and this, so far, the research has not determined anything. Therefore, it's a negative evaluation. And most models of the mixed layer are one-dimensional. So one-dimensional may be that models should be two-dimensional or three-dimensional. I don't know. But one-dimensional is a negative evaluation because it substitutes for what the value should be, which is multidimensionality. So therefore, these are negative evaluations of previous research. Now, let's go back for a second to this prepositional phrase at the beginning, despite Langmuir's pioneering work. So we know despite probably indicates that something is negative, but Langmuir's work is not necessarily negative, but the role of Langmuir's circulation in forming the mixed layer and in distributing heat and momentum has not yet been determined. So here the evaluation is pioneering. Pioneering could be a good positive evaluation, meaning that it was new work at the time, but it also has a slightly new at the time, but, or in this case, despite, but there's a negative comment. So pioneering is used as a positive that will later be contradicted or shown to have a negative expression. Despite is a way of showing that the negative part of the positive part of the evaluation is not as important as the negative part, which is expressed in the main clause of the sentence. So in this case, you can use a dependent clause or an introductory phrase as a way of showing that than the other one.